In this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, we take up the episode Obsession.
Compliance, the final frontier. Tom Fox is the voyager of Trekking Through Compliance. His mission? To explore the original series and seek out and share what it can teach you about compliance. Here's your host, Tom Fox.
Trekking Through Compliance, Episode 42, Obsession. In this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, we consider the episode Obsession, which aired on December 15th, 1967, and occurred on Stardate 3619.2. Story synopsis. After beaming down to a planet to examine titanium deposits, Kirk notices a sweet honey-like odor. He recognizes it as something he encountered 11 years ago and orders the security guards to scan for chromium and fire at the gaseous cloud they may encounter. 2 security guards are killed by the gaseous creature after it removes the red corpuscles and feeds on their hemoglobin. Kirk, Spock, and Ensign Rizzo survive, but Rizzo has much of his hemoglobin removed and must be beamed back to the Enterprise for treatment. Kirk becomes obsessed with the destruction of the creature, which has killed half of the crew of the U.S.S. Farragut, which was Kirk's first deep space assignment. Kirk appears willing to miss his rendezvous with the U.S.S. Orktown, the ship he is supposed to meet with, in order to to pick up perishable vaccines and then deliver them to the planet Theta 7. After Rizzo dies, Kirk beams back down with a landing party, which includes Ensign Garrovick, who was the son of Kirk's commander on the Farragut. Garrovick fires Phaser 2 when he spots the gas cloud, but not before the 2 other officers with him have been attacked. Kirk grills Garrovick, accusing him of freezing up and being responsible for the death of one officer and the severe injury of another, then relieves him of duty. Reading the log file of the Farragut incident, Spock learns that Kirk's obsession is fueled by the fact that he was the one who froze 11 years previously, and he has blamed himself for the deaths of half of the ship's crew ever since. When Chekhov detects the creature leaving the planet's surface, heading into space, Kirk pursues it. Scanners report the creature is in a border state between matter and energy. The creature slows and then heads for the Enterprise. Neither phasers nor photon torpedoes damage it, and it enters the Enterprise through the number 2 impulse vent, which has been inadvertently left open by Scott after performing routine maintenance. Spock realizes that this is the reason for the creature's immunity to weapons fire, because it is able to move itself in order to avoid the phasers. On board the Enterprise, the creature attacks 2 crewmen and enters the ventilation system. Spock goes on to explain the creature's ability to avoid being hit by phasers to Garrovick, but is then attacked when the creature comes through Garrovick's room ventilation shaft. Spock is saved only because his hemoglobin is not based on iron but on copper. The creature then leaves the ship and heads away at warp speed, but Kirk has a hunch of where the creature is headed. In some mystical way, Kirk has sensed the home of the creature is Planet 4 of the Tycho system, located where the Farragut was attacked. Spock is in favor of the chase since sensor readings indicate the creature is about to fission into multiple spawned babies. Kirk and Garrovick beam down to the planet and set hemoplasma as a bait, but the creature takes the bait before the explosive charge of antimatter is ready. Kirk proposes to use himself as bait and orders Garrovick back to the ship. Garrovick attempts to knock Kirk out and act as bait himself, but Kirk overpowers him. The 2 are then beamed up in the nick of time, and the charge of antimatter is set off. After some difficulties with the transporter, Garrovick and Kirk arrive back on board the Enterprise safe and sound. So the fun fact today is actually a personal fun fact. This episode has my all-time favorite Star Trek line. After the creature attempts to attack Spock and is actually repulsed, Dr. McCoy says to Spock, "That green blood of his left a bad taste in the creature's mouth." Spock replies, colloquially expressed, but essentially correct. I've used that quote for 50 years. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. In this episode, I want to talk about the remastered Star Trek, the original series DVDs, which of course are also now available to stream online. Obsession was the 65th episode of the remastered version of the original series to air, premiering in syndication on April 2008. Aside from the standard CGI replacement footage of the Enterprise, this episode most notably featured new effects shot of the planets Argus X and Tycho 4, as well as revised footage of the dichromium cloud creature and the Enterprise's phaser fire into it while it was in space. One piece of the new footage added was a shot of the crater left of the antimatter blast on Tycho 4, shown at the end of the episode. This replaced the stock footage of the Enterprise traveling through space. This episode is the only one out of the entire series on Netflix that does not use the remastered version, but it does have it on Paramount Plus if you have that series. If you've never checked out the remastered versions, you should do so. I, of course, have all of them on DVD, being the fanatic that I am, but they're also on Paramount Plus going forward. So check out the remastered versions of Star Trek, the original series, for some great updates in the visual effects. So what are the ethical lessons from the episode Obsession? Well, I can think of maybe 4 or 5 that are very prescient. Number 1, promote healthy grieving and coping mechanisms. Organizations need to understand that unresolved grief can lead to unethical decision-making and obsessive behaviors. Encourage employees to seek counseling, support groups, or other healthy outlets to process grief and loss. You need, your organization should provide training and resources to help managers identify and support employees dealing with trauma or bereavement. 2, establish clear policies on privacy and consent. Your organization needs comprehensive policies that protect the privacy and autonomy of employees, customers, and other stakeholders. Your organization should ensure that data collection, monitoring, and technological implementations respect individual rights and have appropriate consent mechanisms in place. And finally, compliance professionals should enforce these policies consistently and hold leaders accountable for any breaches. Number 3, a culture of ethical reasoning. Encourage critical thinking and ethical deliberation when faced with difficult decision-making. Utilize data analytics and pattern recognition to the extent you can. You should provide ethics training to employees to navigate the slippery slope of rationalization so that they can maintain objectivity and not move into the fraud triangle or the fraud pentagon. You should empower employees to raise concerns about unethical behavior without the fear of retaliation. Number 4, demonstrate accountability and transparency. You should model accountability by taking responsibility for your own actions and decisions. Establish transparent reporting structures and communication channels to build trust throughout your organization. Promptly investigate and address any ethical or compliance issues that arise. Number 5, integrate ethical considerations into long-term strategic planning. As a compliance professional, you should embed ethical principles into your organization's mission, vision, and core values. Ensure that strategic initiatives and business decisions are evaluated through an ethical lens. You should prioritize ethical leadership development as a part of your organization's talent management strategy. By applying these lessons from Obsession, leaders can cultivate a more ethically grounded and resilient organization that is well equipped to navigate the complex challenges of the modern business landscape. Ultimately, this helps to build trust, enhance an organization's overall reputation, and drive long-term sustainable success from a business perspective. Join us tomorrow when we take up the episode Wolf in the Fold.
If you enjoyed this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, you can help it grow by sharing it with the biggest Trek fan you know.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.